2018, Sony hit another milestone with PlayStation. 500 million consoles sold across this entire catalog from PS1 days, which is pretty good. And like Sony and PlayStation, still strong brand even in 2018. Like the PS4's had a great year. I think it still remains the market leader in terms of sales, at least in mindshare. And it kind of felt like it's holding on to that lead pretty well. We had pretty good exclusives this year, starting early with God of War. I mean, like, I was expecting it to be a good game coming from Sony Santa Monica. I did not expect what God of War gave us, though. It was like a fundamental kind of reinvention of a character that people have kind of written off. And it took a lot of like cinematic leaps, and it's doing interesting things with storytelling.
I find it more endearing now.
Yeah.
For me, it's like I wasn't really interested in Kratos before, but now he's much more interesting character with a more emotional side with Atreus.
I feel like both of you are missing the point, which is that that axe felt bloody cool.
Yeah, very much so.
The combat was just so satisfying.
The God of War games have never felt good to me. Like, I love those games, but they never felt intricate or interesting in any meaningful way. Whereas this is the first time that I actually felt good about the combat and felt like I wanted to unpack it and figure it out. And that axe element of it is incredible. It's like it starts off feeling like a gimmick, and then over time, the way they build it into puzzles and the way they kind of factor it into combat, it makes it a proper, like, it earns its place in that game. I think they're going to stick with Norse mythology for a little while longer, because if you play the end of that game, there's a revelation that's quite, a big deal. But I'm excited for God of War, and I think more people than ever have played it. And I never expected God of War to deliver a kind of a story that sticks with you and characterization that sticks with you. Kratos feels like a legitimate character now, and that is really exciting for people who love that franchise. Another big exclusive for the year, Spider-Man.
Yes.
Another game that kind of like unexpectedly good. The actual feel of this game felt way better than I expected it to be. I was pleasantly surprised as someone who loves Spider-Man. What did you think of it?
I loved it. I mean, for me, it was all about the traversal of the city. And the city felt great as well. It's not one of these big open worlds that just feels a bit dead. It felt like, there were people there who were fans of Spider-Man, or they hated Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, threat or menace? He's both. Sometimes he's a threatening menace, and sometimes he's a menacing threat.
And the combat was brilliant. It just felt so good, and you're constantly changing that and upgrading Spidey. And actually, one of the first things I did was go around collecting backpacks, which, you get bogged down with open worlds these days with the amount you have to collect, and Spider-Man has a lot of it. But I did love just going everywhere and using it as an excuse to go sightseeing and taking pictures of the city and taking screenshots and changing outfits. And I got so much out of that game, aside from the core sort of story, which was also really good.
If you think this will be more than a minor inconvenience...
Whoop, gotta go. Hey, good luck, Willie. I have a feeling you're gonna need it.
I think the most impressive thing about Spider-Man was not only did it satisfy the hardcore comic book fans, like you two are far more into superheroes and stuff like that than I am, but I think we probably got an equal amount out of that game. Like, it didn't really disappoint, like, people were really invested in that franchise, but at the same time, as a casual fan coming to Spider-Man, having seen like a couple of the films and that's about it, I still really enjoyed it and recognised a bunch of the characters and felt invested in Peter Parker.
Hey, Pete.
MJ? What are you doing here?
The collectathon stuff really grated on me after a little while. It says a lot that it was fun because of the traversal, but after a while, it kept introducing new collectibles, and I was like, So like at the end of it, for me, I think it was a really good game, but what's important about it, again, like God of War, it sets the stage for more good Spider-Man games. But those are two big exclusives. There's a bunch more. Detroit.
I thought Detroit was, it may not be the best game in the world, but I thought the characters were really, really interesting. It was a little bit on the nose with its analogies. And,
I think that's the biggest knock against it.
Yeah, it is a bit, what if the humans are the bad guys, it's...
What if, David? What if indeed?
Yeah, exactly. But I thought it got a little bit ignored or shuffled under the carpet unfairly, because I think it was actually a very good video game.
Another game that I completely forgot about until just now is the Shadow of the Colossus remake. That was like the first game Sony released this year, I think. I think it was at least in February or something like that. But man, that was a no-frills remake, and it was perfect. That's exactly what I wanted from it. That's one of those games where the more you mess with it, the more upset people get, and I think the developers knew it, and they were like, let's not touch anything, just do a one-to-one remake, and it was perfect. Like, it rejuvenates that game for an entire new generation of people to, you know, kind of enjoy for the first time. But there are other games like Yakuza Kiwami 2, again. Yakuza has been going under some sort of renaissance where suddenly everyone cares about it now.
Yeah, and they've been releasing them like non-stop as well.
It's so good to see, because like since the PS2 days, that's been very much a cult classic. But now, since Zero, everyone knows that there's this really weird, cool Japanese exploration game. And it's weird that as Shenmue is making its return, Yakuza becomes incredibly popular because of, you know, it's the spiritual successor almost.
Yeah, it's one of those few games that gets localized for the West, but remains very Japanese. So it's almost like going on holiday to Tokyo, to Japan. You feel like you're, you know, there.
So yeah, I'm glad that Yakuza is having a good 2018. There's been a couple of missteps here and there in terms of gaming. One that kind of really annoyed me was Castlevania Requiem.
See, I'm not annoyed yet because I didn't play those games originally. So, but for you who love those games.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot I don't want to dwell on it too long because negativity, let's not focus too much on that, but it's worth saying, like, prior to its release, Konami was talking a big game, being like, this is not just a simple port. It's a simple port and perhaps is worse than that. It doesn't have any kind of like the extras. It's based on a PSP port. And all in all, it's like, hey, we're gonna give you the best version of Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood. Here it is. And then when we got it, we were like, this is bad, my dudes.
As someone who didn't get into those games originally, it is slightly off-putting to know that this isn't the best way to play it. And maybe an Xbox 360 is a better way to play one of those classic PlayStation games.
I'll lend you my strength!
So one of the other big things this year for Sony was VR. Started off really quiet. In fact, it's been quiet through most of the year.
Yeah.
But the last few months, the very tail end of this year, it's been really strong.
There's a great selection of games now. You've been playing Tetris Effect.
Tetris Effect is a fantastic game. It's important to say that you don't have to play that in VR.
Sure.
And in fact, there's a lot of advantages to not playing it in VR because it runs, if you've got a 4K TV, it runs super high resolution, it's really colorful. But when you play it in VR, it's a completely different experience. Like, I was playing it originally without, and then Peter Brown, who reviewed it for us, was like, you've got to try it in VR. And he was right. Like, even if you don't stick with it because of various reasons, it's one of those things that you should experience because it changes your interaction with it. It goes from being a really cool version of Tetris to being this kind of strange experiential thing where it kind of absorbs the rest of the world around you, and you create that tunnel vision that only happens in specific types of puzzle games, you know, when you're in the zone almost. But it usually takes you ages to get there. Like with this, the moment you start playing, the world just kind of envelops you and you're really, really focused. And the music, because it's a Mizuguchi game, and kind of like they're great at creating these ambient environments through like, you know, res, luminous, that kind of thing. It's so easy to lose a few hours to that game just unwittingly.
Yeah.
So that's been a really, really strong game for VR, I think. But then beyond that, there's like stuff that has come out early in the year that is now getting a second look because of how cheap it is. Astro Bot. I played it for the first time like a couple of days ago, and I have been playing it. That is an incredibly good game. I played it and it reminded me of playing Mario.
Really?
And that means like, obviously like, we know how good Mario games are, and it's a Nintendo quality game from Sony and VR. Presentation's really cool, it's like whimsical and upbeat, and the platform is actually really tight. It feels good to jump around, which is the thing that a lot struggle with. And if you look at the Astro Bot, it'll wave at you.
I feel like the problem with it though is that Sony don't seem to be making a big enough deal about these great games that are coming out for VR. It's like quiet, and then like a real gem will come out like Astrobot, and there'll just be no word from Sony about it, and they're almost relying on word of mouth, and it's like there's not enough people out there with a VR headset to rely on word of mouth.
There's enough experiences out there now to warrant buying one. I would personally just recommend it for like Resi 7, Tetris Effect, and Astrobot, and you can pick up some like Batman stuff on the side as well and a few other things. So in terms of services, it feels like in 2018 Sony's been pretty much just maintaining more than anything else. PlayStation Plus, how has it been for you?
I feel like the quality of games, it seemed like there was a peak. We had that run where there was like Black Ops 3, Destiny 2, Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, and like it seemed like the games that we were getting free with PS Plus they were getting to be big titles. And now the last couple of months it seems to have dropped off again, and obviously early next year they're going to be getting rid of PS3 and Vita titles on PS Plus completely, and I don't think there's going to be an increase in the number of PS4 games either, so hopefully the calibre of titles will increase to make up for the lack of quantity.
It's never felt like bad value for money with PS Plus, and you're always getting the discounts.
Yeah.
And comparing it to Xbox, like I never feel like anything on Xbox is like that amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of the free Games with Gold stuff, maybe Xbox isn't as good, but where it kind of makes up for it is services like, you know, the Game Pass stuff, which Sony technically kind of has an equivalent of with PlayStation
Sort
now.
of.
But whereas PlayStation now, I feel like is the clear, like, it is not doing what Game Pass is.
Such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, a huge one. Speaking of missed opportunities, PlayStation Classic came out this year.
Oh,
the year of
so
nostalgia
disappointed.
strikes again.
I was actually going to get that for Christmas, and then I had to tell my girlfriend, actually, probably not worth it. Like, I'd feel bad if she spent that much money on a system that I wouldn't really play a lot, because there's only 2 or 3 games that I'd maybe get some fun out of.
The issues with it are numerous and have been catalogued in detail on our site and various other sites. It runs like crap. Like, they didn't do the work.
Do you know what? I think I could deal with that if the games on there
Were better.
were games that I wanted to play.
Yeah.
Is a real misstep.
It just doesn't represent that console. To me, that is not what the PlayStation was.
No.
I don't even want to play Metal Gear Solid on it. And if I would play Metal Gear Solid on anything, if you gave that to me on a microwave, I would play it. But I don't want to boot up that thing for it. And like same for Tekken. Tekken runs like crap. It's not the Twisted Metal I want. Anything like, it's really, really disappointing and a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Sony's had a bit of a weird year with events as well. E3 was odd.
Mediocre.
Yeah.
Weird.
The core setup was just 4 games that we're going to focus on. It was clear that they didn't have much to show.
Yeah.
They had these big games, but they didn't have much to show for them.
Yeah.
And anything they did show or had interesting in terms of like release dates, DLC stuff, they did it in between moving people around and not on stream. So like people were going to
Really?
Twitter and being like, oh, they've announced the release date for X, Y, and Z.
But we've got a flute.
That is the one good thing that Sony's E3 press conference gave us. Actually 2. It gave us Ghost of Tsushima gameplay, which
Yes.
is good. A little bit of Death Stranding gameplay. But Flute Guy was epic.
But even after E3, like Sony was just a no-show at so many events.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like set the stage for them being like,
Yeah.
well, you've seen loads of our games, we're done now.
They bailed from Gamescom, they bailed from Paris Games Week, they cancelled PSX,
Yeah.
they're not going to be at E3 next year. Sony's getting like me when I was at university. Like, there's a party going on? Nah, I'm alright, thanks. I'm going to sit in my room.
Leaving E3 2019 is probably a huge, huge story this year, mainly because of the impact and the implications it has on next year, right? What does that mean for Sony? Are they gonna, what do they have going for next year? I mean, a lot of speculation is 2020's PlayStation,
Yeah.
PlayStation 5, the next iteration of it. So like, I think a lot of people are expecting the announcement at the very least next year.
Surely.
It's gotta be,
Surely
right?
It's got to be. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
there's nothing happening for Sony next year. I mean, there's obviously big games coming out. Hopefully, The Last of Us Part 2 will come out next year, which is the one that I'm really excited for.
I mean, I've got faith in Sony because they've been really good for us the last few years. Like, it remains my main console for playing games.
How much are they paying you, Will?
Nothing. You guys aren't even paying me. PlayStation remains my place to play games.
2018 has been a really good year, but it's just continued to be, like, PlayStation 4 overall has been really good for Sony and for us as gamers and consumers. Like, it's been easier. There's loads of games. The ecosystem has been more welcoming. Overall, how do you think 2018 has been for you in terms of PlayStation 4?
I'm really glad we got games like Spider-Man and God of War, and games I've yet to sink my teeth into, like Tetris Effect and Shadow of the Colossus.
I think for me this year, I think Sony's actually had a really good year, partly on the games front, like you mentioned, but also I think the most promising thing for me is that Sony appears to be listening to its fan base again. I wrote last year about how I thought Sony had become a little bit too overconfident and was starting to ignore its core fan base, whereas now they listened to people saying they want name changes, and they've obviously now arrived, obviously with some caveats, but they are here. And crossplay as well, as I think it is a huge thing. Obviously at the moment it's only with Fortnite, but the fact that you can, in some capacity, play on PS4 with someone who's playing on Xbox or on Switch, I think is huge.
Yeah, I agree. I think PlayStation 4 has been really good to us this year. I'm excited for what's coming. I would like to, like Will say, have concrete dates on that stuff, but it's only a matter of time until we have that. The stuff like Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, those are the kind of things that are making me excited for next year. So yeah, good year. Could have been a little better. Sort the name things out. And then 2019, a lot of potential. So Oscar's actually been writing a report card for us. You can find that on GameSpot.com. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be doing our year in review and best of and most anticipated stuff. So make sure to keep your eyes on GameSpot.com, where you'll see us take on Xbox and Nintendo and PC. And you can go to youtube.com/GameSpot to see all the videos around that. And we're going to get back to being paid off by Sony.
Playing the fruit.